Okay, so Bhavya, please tell us about yourself.
Ma'am, I was born and brought up in Delhi. I completed my graduation from NLU Delhi in 2020. Thereafter, I got placed with EY. I worked with EY for about a year. Then I quit my job to prepare for Judicial Services exam. I was able to clear the prelims for Delhi Judiciary Services in 2022 cycle, but could not clear the mains. Then thereafter, I also got enrolled for an LLM course at NLU Delhi, and I finished it recently in June 2024.
So Bhavya, what was the reason you left your job and you wanted to join judiciary?
Actually, I was preparing for judiciary in my college also. But I wanted to experience how a corporate job feels like because coming from NLU Delhi, a lot of my peers were setting for placements. So just to get an experience of how that turns out, I also sat for the interview and I was lucky enough to get a job. So I worked there. I learned how things work. I got a good experience in contract drafting team, and thereafter I decided that this is not my long-term goal, and I started to work for judiciary exams.
Okay, and you did your LLM. What was your dissertation topic?
I worked on disability rights at the workplace. Uh, mm, it was a comparative study between Indian laws, American laws, and the United Nations Convention on Rights of Person with Disability Act. So I argued for incorporating uh, an inclusive and holistic disability rights at workplace, which is currently not up to the mark in under Indian laws. And my base legislatory acts were the United Nations Convention.
So can you tell me three differences that are between American laws and Indian laws?
Yes, ma'am. Under the American laws, the American Disability Act was the first act in this regard. It was passed in 1990. It is also called the mother of disability rights across the globe because before then there was no law with regard to disability rights. Uh, so the movement in America regarding the rights of person with disabilities is what which started the entire regime. The disability rights in America already provide for a lot of in terms of inclusivity for persons with disability at the workplaces. However, it does not provide for any um, positive steps such as reservation, which is provided in India. So, in that regard, I think the Indian laws have overcome the global standards as it provides reservation and ensures that representation is there at workplace.
Don't you think that India has given reservation to this category of people, especially able people? And what do you think that India should do more in terms of reservation, in terms of representation?
At the moment, the laws which are the provisions which are given under the Indian Disability Act of 2016, they do not provide for compliance by private organizations. The provisions are largely restricted to public spaces, public offices, government jobs. So I think if I may make a recommendation is that extending the application of such laws and making inclusivity mandatory for private spaces as well. I think that will be a good initiative.
Why you never thought of going into litigation?
Uh, I thought about going into litigation. I wanted to do that. But due to some personal challenges, think litigation would not be the right fit for me. I will not be able to do justice to that profession. Also, I like reading about laws a lot, and
And
I
how
like
you think
to.
that judiciary is going to help you there? How you think judiciary is going to solve that for you?
Yes, ma'am. I always wanted to do some social work in my life. I always had that idea in my mind. I also like reading a lot about laws and I stay updated about the legal developments which are going on. So I think litigation requires helping one case at a time, working on one case at a time, I think I will be more content with uh, studying about different things,
So how you think
backgrounds.
judges do social work?
Uh, I think judges have that office and that position where they can make a difference. They can make a difference to the parties that come before them. And
That's not a social service. They are the parties who are aggrieved, who come to court. Mostly, some of the people
yes, ma'am.
they don't even approach. They cannot approach the court because of their financial stability, because they are part of marginal society. So they cannot approach court. In that case, how are they doing the social service?
Ma'am, it is the utmost duty of a judicial officer to provide justice to the parties in the matters before them. So I think that is an important way of how judges can uphold their social values. Besides that, ma'am, the Legal Services Authorities Act, I think, provides for representation for people who come from marginalized backgrounds. And sure, there is a gap in implementation, but I think even so, everyone has a right and an opportunity to represent their case before the court, which can be undertaken.
Yes.
Uh, so you have worked in contract drafting in EY. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So, Bhavya, any 3 points which you personally feel कि इंडियन कॉन्ट्रैक्ट एक्ट में ये बदलाव होना जरूरी है with respect to the misuse of the laws regarding contract?
So can I take a minute to
Yeah,
think
sure.
about it? Sir, I cannot come up with three reasons, but I will attempt to answer if I have your permission.
Yeah, sure, sure.
Hello. Sorry,
Yeah.
sir. I think my connection got lost. Am I
No,
audible?
you're audible. Yes, continue.
Sir, I will attempt to answer.
Yeah, sure, sure.
I do not have
बिल्कुल.
3 points, but I think
Yeah,
okay.
sure, you can attempt.
Sir, I think in India, the contracts sometimes get affected by fiduciary relations between the parties, or where one party is a little more well versed with the legal provisions over the other. So sometimes what happens is in the contracts, they will include certain provisions which are beneficial to one party and adverse to another. So I think if something can be done before finalizing the contract at the negotiation stage only, if both the parties can get legal advice on whether how both the contract is as per the intention. I think that could be done under the Indian Contract Act.
Okay. Um, so, like, were you equipped with the drafting employment contracts?
No, sir. I was assigned in the team for one of the third-party clients of EY, which dealt with the client was Caterpillar, and their contracts mostly related to uh, um, purchase or sale of their equipments, as well as sometimes when employees had certain, for example, rent agreements for employees who were staying out, little things
Okay.
like that.
Okay. But still, if we talk about employment contracts, so what
Yes, sir.
are the tenability of these employment contracts? Like,
Take,
are these employment contracts enforceable in the court of law? For example, you were in EY and there you certainly had a contract that कि आपके लिए वहां पर 2 महीने का 3 महीने का नोटिस देना मैंडेटरी है. And if you fail to give that notice, that is a breach of contract, certainly. So, can EY enforce this contract in the court of law? And if not, then can EY ask you to pay compensation?
Sir, in my knowledge, this particular point is cannot be brought before the court. Um in my knowledge, this contract represents that if 2 months notice is not given at the time of resignation, then EY will hold back certain benefits which it would have otherwise given to the employee. However, if the employee is not willing to work for that 2 or 3 months notice, then it cannot be made mandatory for the employee to continue working, because that would be violation of his fundamental rights also, in my opinion. And EY cannot seek compensation in this regard.
Uh, what is specific performance of a part of a contract? Like you were involved in the sale and purchase of equipments contract. So, am I audible?
Yes, sir,
Uh,
you're audible.
So, sale and purchase of the equipments. So, if a party was not able to perform the whole of the contract, then what is the provision and what are the intricacies of this provision with respect to specific performance of a part of a contract?
So specific performance of a contract has been provided in specific relief act. It refers to uh, the intent that the contract was made for the purpose of ensuring that the parties uphold their respective duties under the contract. However, if certain parts of the contract are not being performed by either of the parties, then the remaining parts can be ordered by the court that you must perform the remaining parts of the contract.
Okay. Any other subject which you have read for the purpose of this examination and you're like well
Uh,
versed with it?
Sir, I think I'm confident with my code of civil procedure.
Okay. Amendment of pleading कहाँ दिया हुआ है?
Sir, Rule 17 of Order 16 talks about amendment of pleadings.
Okay. So, what is the stage of amendment of pleading?
So, amendment of pleadings can be allowed by the court at any stage before. I'm sorry, sir, I'm not able to recall, but the general idea is that it can be allowed at any stage before the trial commences. I think I'm not too sure about that.
Yeah, you're correct that as per Order 6 Rule 17 provision, the stage of amendment of pleading is before the trial begins. ठीक. Is there any exception to this rule? कि किसी law के अंदर in any of the laws there they have provided that at any stage of inquiry or trial you can amend your pleading.
Sir, I think there is a provision that when certain new facts come to the notice of the parties which were not present before, then parties can also bring that to the notice of the court by amending their pleadings. However, amendment at such a stage should not be to the extent that it changes the nature of the suit.
What is declaratory decree?
So, declaratory decree refers to a decree by the court where the rights of the parties are declared, where the dispute was regarding the title or interest of a party vesting in a subject matter, and declaration is provided in that regard by court, highlighting the rights.
uh, can a court grant declaratory decree giving without seeking for further relief from the court?
Sorry, sir, could you please repeat your question?
Like a person has filed a suit for declaratory decree, but he did not claim any further relief like preventive relief. For example, there's a property, and with respect to the property, the person wants declaration as to his ownership and an injunction against the defendant that he should not interfere with his right any further. ठीक है. So, but the plaintiff did not claim the additional relief while filing the suit. Can the court allow the declaratory decree under Section 34 of a Specific Relief Act
Sir, I think the court can give declaratory decree
without seeking further relief?
because sorry, sir,
Without
without
seeking
seeking
further relief?
further relief. Sir, I think I'm not too sure, but if I can attempt to answer.
Yes,
Um, the declaratory decree by its very nature defines the rights of the parties. So even if the plaintiff had intended to seek injunction, the purpose of the injunction was to the purpose of the injunction would be to stop the defendant from interfering with the right of the plaintiff. So by if the in the declaratory decree the court has already defined that the ownership of the property belongs to the plaintiff, I don't think not seeking injunction would should affect that release.
that's all from my side.
भव्या ये बताओ, जुवेनाइल अंडर सीआरपीसी एंड जुवेनाइल अंडर जेजे एक्ट, इन दोनों में क्या डिफरेंस है?
I'm sorry, ma'am, I'm not able to recall at the moment.
बात नहीं। अच्छा, मान लो आपका डीजेएस का प्रीलिम्स का एग्जाम था, आप एक बैग लेके गए और आपने वो बैग सिक्योरिटी गार्ड को बाहर दे दिया, ठीक है, देयर वर सम चॉकलेट्स एंड फूड इन इट, ठीक है, और आप देकर चले गए। जब आप बाहर आए तो आपने देखा कि जो सिक्योरिटी गार्ड है उसने आपके चॉकलेट्स और आपका जो फूड आइटम था वो खा लिया। अब यहाँ पर किस तरीके का क्वाज़ी कॉन्ट्रैक्चुअल ऑब्लिगेशन अराइज हुआ है?
Ma'am, the security guard was trusted with my property, and uh, uh, so I think the offense would be criminal breach of trust because he was trusted with my property and he has misused that trust to for his own interest, using that property for his own interest.
दैट्स ऑल फ्रॉम आवर साइड, भव्या।